it's not like this in every state. Why does softball have their season in fall and then baseball's in spring? Like
Great question.
in Florida, softball season and baseball season were the same seasons.
There's no rest for the girls.
What percentage of your athletes right now are softball versus baseball?
I'm usually right about 50-50. 100 Division I schools, another 100 D2s. There were hundreds and hundreds of coaches there. 8 fields going at once, and the coaches are bouncing around, and me and my guy were down there doing the same. I wish baseball did something more centric like that.
Welcome to the show, guys. Athletek Podcast, baseball development show here in the Juice Box, Atlanta, Georgia. We've got Sean Yanis, EAS Recruiting today. Coach, tell them a little bit about what you do, your business, just, all the things, man. I know this is something that kind of started, you tell them 5-6 years ago, you started doing this full time, and kind of what has this grown into for you?
Yeah, I mean, not to age myself, but coming from a guy that came out of South Florida in the early mid-90s, recruiting was a lot different. I committed to a Division I school my senior year in May of my senior year. So as senior season was ending, I was committing to FIU. Went to D1, ended up at a JUCO, and then ended up D2. So that's kind of who I was as a player, D2 guy.
Yeah.
I was a middle infielder. Grew up with A-Rod, and I graduated the same. We grew up a mile apart. So
yeah.
a lot of talent in South Florida. Coming to Atlanta post-grad, I ended up at Spring Hill College, D2 school in Alabama. Coming to Atlanta post-grad, just was enamored seeing the baseball scene here. Being a South Florida guy, I always thought we had the best players, but I'm not so certain about that anymore. I think Atlanta can hang with South Florida now. It's hard for me to say that, but I think it's true. Going through this with my daughter when she was a freshman in high school, so I think 2017, got a lot of the phone calls from the big recruiting services. Hey, we've seen your daughter play. We know she can play Division I. We know, and I'm thinking, one, who are you? How have you seen my daughter play? I felt almost like a telemarketer was calling me.
Yeah.
So I said, no, we got this. I'm going to help her. I was her coach, and a couple of different big travel organizations here in Atlanta, and I just guided her like a Fortune 500 sales executive. I had spent 20 years building sales teams in medical sales and taught her how to communicate via email because that's all they were allowed to do. The girls' rules changed well before the boys.
Yeah.
So all she could really do was email, get to camps, but try to teach her how to communicate on who she was. And we did this a few times over with a handful of girls. I coached with the Atlanta Vipers, and we placed probably 25 girls across the 20 and 21 class. Me and Coach Greg Shemenko, who's the head coach. And just kind of got our nose bloody going through this together, had fun with it, try this, do this, see what happens here. And it worked. The school she committed to, Georgia State, the coaches basically said she recruited us. She was one of the best speakers we had been around. And it was not me giving her the answer. It was just guiding her, letting her personality show. So honestly thought I was going to do this just for fun, part-time, help some kids here and there. And during 2020, I guess, when COVID hit, I was grounded, couldn't travel, couldn't get on an airplane, couldn't get into a hospital. My salespeople were doing very well. We had a device that helped patients in their home. So I was sitting in my home office, basically building a company.
That's awesome.
Once the world reopened and I go back to work, I tried doing it both for 6 months in EAS, which is Empowered Analytics Sports. Okay. Got so busy so fast, I resigned from a 20-year career in August of 21 to do this full time. And we've helped well over 200 kids.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it started through softball.
Through softball.
Through your daughter.
Through my daughter, yeah.
Man, that's great. I can relate to this because 2020, I feel like, was a turning point for a lot of people who were preparing to start their own businesses, right? And in our business here at Athletek, we had already started the business in 2017, but 2020 was what pushed us over the edge to get going. And Coach Greg and I, we have a little history going back to then because we actually met up at the ABCA convention in January of 2020. Not met for the first time, but we were playing men's league together, and he was up there, and we were with Ted from Axio, one of our brand partners. Up on the wall. wall right here. But Ted invited us to come out and help, be in his booth and help sell his product, his Axio product. Him and Dale had connected out in Vegas. So we're up there at the ABCA at this convention, and Greg rolls up. Hey guys, what's going on? And this is before Greg was working for us. And fast forward like 2 months later, everything shut down.
Yeah.
I was coaching at a travel bowl organization at the time. They shut down. No more strength training. No more this. No more that. My pay at my full-time job got cut, and I was like, I got to figure out what to do. Messaged all my clients, and not clients at the time, messaged all the players that I had coached over the years and was like, guys, if you need training, if you need anything, let me know. I've got a spot where I can train. One of the guys, Jason Colleran, he owns Elite Edge Gym over in Chamblee. He has the kinetic arm that I'm sure you've probably seen. Great product. And he was nice enough I had a player at the time who was having elbow issues, and I brought him in to check out the product, and he's like, man, you need a place to train? You let me know, we'll work something out. And he was nice enough to let me in his gym and start training some guys, and that's really what pushed us forward. So when you're talking about COVID in 2020, the pandemic, and starting a business from home, ours wasn't necessarily from home, but same concept, man. Just having to figure stuff out.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? There was a need, and all of us, the entrepreneurial minds, jumped on something.
Yeah.
My daughter actually has an NIL with Jason and the company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They're good people.
No, man. They've been great to us. They've done a lot for us, and part of us being here is thanks to them. But yeah, man, I mean, just, you talked about briefly your playing career in Miami and just baseball down there. I'm from Central Florida, Daytona Beach area. And like you said, you grow up in Florida thinking, man, we're in the Mecca for baseball. And then you go somewhere else and you realize, man, there's good baseball elsewhere too. You guys are probably seeing that big time now that you're a little bit more national. You're dealing with players kind of all over the country now, correct?
Correct, yes. Correct.
What do you see, like, regionally? What are you seeing? You go from California to Texas to Georgia to Florida to the Northeast. Like, what are you seeing, biggest differences in players and recruiting and schools and all this?
I mean, staying in the Southeast, to compare Atlanta to South Florida, to Miami in particular. With Miami, there's still I'm a Cuban American. There's still a lot of Hispanic players down in Miami, mm-hmm. and the kids in Atlanta, a lot of them are called warehouse kids, right? They've got a strength coach, a pitching coach, a dietitian. They've got a team of coaches. They got a recruiter. They've got people who are helping get them ready. Where some of the South Florida kids, it's still, I go watch games down there, and it's still a lot of the chatter, a lot of the old school kind of what I grew up seeing and playing in. It's like every man for himself, eat what you kill. Where here it's a lot more polished. At the end of the day, we came up with, where Gino DiMari, who was the Miami head coach, first said this to me, and we ran with it. It's CHP. Can he play? And we put that hashtag CHP. At the end of the day, whether you're recruiting a kid from South Florida with no money and just begging to find me a place, or a kid from Greater Atlanta who goes to a $20,000 a year high school, it's can he play? It's our job as recruiters to help put them in front of the right audience, help get them to be seen. And then can he play? Because no matter what our video shows, no matter what our text message says, at the end of the day, they got a CHP, and there's got to be a need for those kids. So it's really regionalized. I'm finding South Florida is different than Central Florida. Central Florida is different than Tampa. That's been fun for me, learning the seasonality of where we are. I'm working with Jeff Wagner, who coached at Marshall for years. He's based out of Ohio now. And he's like, man, everything's shutting down up here because it's cold. I was like, well, come south. We have tournaments every weekend here because, so, he and I are focusing on doing things in the south over the next couple months. So that's been a big learning curve for me, is learning where I go next for our next round of business. Like we mentioned earlier, softball's been big because of what was happening now. It's showcase season for softball the next 3 weeks. Yeah. There's 3 of the biggest showcases happening right in 100 miles from me, right here. It's Chattanooga, and then 2 in Atlanta, and then 1 in Clearwater. So that's getting out in front of it and knowing what's coming next, really based on where the kids are at.
Yeah. No, and that's probably when you guys first started, I'm sure a lot of the guys were local. guys and girls were
Yes.
local,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Like, how quickly did you see just, you guys branching out to guys in other regions?
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about this. It's how do you use social media to market, and I still haven't really figured that out. We're organic. We started with local kids here. My first player was Morgan McQuaig, who plays at Georgia Gwinnett at shortstop there, and I did for free, friend of the family, and that organically grew to a couple other kids, and I can almost pike out who where the players came from. Jason Gilly, one of your guys, was one of my first baseball kids, and he has single-handedly brought me 8 other kids, and I call it the Bill Walsh coaching tree. I can map out where kids came from. So we started really focused on really here, being from Miami and knowing so many people. The old baseball 2 degrees of separation. We can connect with anybody anywhere. South Florida was big. Grew to Central Florida, Tampa. A former coach of mine is there. So it kind of grew really Georgia, Florida in the beginning.
Yeah.
But now we got kids in 2 in Kansas, Pennsylvania, a couple in California, Indiana, Ohio. Yeah. So we're growing. We're still pretty heavily focused in the Southeast, but every day that passes, it really is growing more so organically. Not that I've got this social media piece figured out. A lot of hard work.
Well, the social media piece is always changing too. Yes. And we talked about, the struggles that we're having right now. Not struggles, but just the work that we're putting in right now to make sure that we're giving people a brief overview of what we do here, making sure people know who we are, understanding that, putting out some content that matches your level of expertise and like the things that you believe in. That's important. I'm sure it's very important with recruiting, and sometimes done directly, sometimes done indirectly. Sometimes it's your face getting on and saying, hey, this is what we do. Sometimes it's letting a player speak for himself. Yeah. Man, that player's a really good player. He works with EAS. Like, have you figured out that is a big piece of it too, is having, obviously you're going to have people who flat out need help. The CHP, can he play? That meter goes like this, right? And there's certain guys that obviously are probably going to be future major leaguers. There's some guys that they're going to struggle to get on maybe the lowest level college. And your goal is, I know you said this before, you talk about like 100% placement. If somebody comes to you, you want to find out, hey, if you want this bad enough, we're going to figure out where you can go. What's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, over 200 kids, we have 100% placement ratio, and we've never told a kid no based on talent. We won't.
Yeah.
I've told families no based on, I'm going to be chasing junior. Mom and dad, you want this more than junior. But if you want to play, I truly believe we can help you. We can help find a place for you to play. It really comes down to personalizing their story. Whether it's John Doe, Sally Smith, we're telling a unique story. We're helping tell your story. The company Empowered Analytics Sports, empowered is to empower an athlete to tell their own story. And it's all unique and it's all different. We have 250 some odd different stories. And Greg's son, for instance, Charlie, he comes to us as a 6'2", 185-pound right-handed pitcher with a 1340 SAT. Like, okay, his story's going to be driven by he's a hell of a pitcher, but it's up here. So that's our list. When we put it together, we were focusing on academic type schools that have really good programs. He ended up at Georgetown, right? Good job. Salute. But that's what his story led us to. Yeah. And it's us helping kids personalize their story, whether it be CHP, can he play, putting them in front of the right people, the right sets of eyes. The analytic part of our company is your analytics. They measure everything now, especially the boys. Miles per hour, spin ratio, 60, exit velocity, bat speed, all the launch angle, all this stuff is measured. Those are the analytics. And I use this example. If you're a 5'8", 145-pound right-handed pitcher and you throw 82 miles per hour, you can play college baseball. Mm-hmm. You're not pitching at Tennessee because the analytics say. Now, there's that fine line. If you're 5'11", throwing 87, maybe you could pitch at Tennessee if we can help tell your story and get you an opportunity. Yeah. And that's the truth. That's the most fun part of this for me, is that there's 200 some odd kids and there's 200 some odd different stories, and every one is exciting as it comes to its fruition. As they get their opportunity to play, you get to say wow, and you get to go back, sometimes look back a year or two and see that progression take place.
Yeah. Well, you're bringing up just, you're talking about individual stuff. The 5'8", 145 pitcher, who can play call. We've had those guys. We've had the Charlies. We've had, and then we've had some horses. Some guys that are like, man, this guy, he coming off the bus, he fits the mold. He passes the eye test. Like, let's put it back on the player a little bit. I mean, you just talked a little bit about kind of just your process and how it's evolved. For players that are entering this process, some guys are going to choose a recruiter. Some guys are going to choose, guys and girls, they're going to choose to do this on their own. Regardless, what are some of the most important things that these athletes can be doing? I know there's the cliche things like get good grades and play better and develop and all these things, but like, what are some things that people might not think about that you see on a consistent basis? Is like, man, when people do this 100% helps.
Yeah, well, and I am going to get cliche to start with. Grades are the most important, whether you're coming out of high school like Charlie or transfer portal like my daughter last year. She got a lot of money based on her grades that she could play, but grades are very important. Not to get too cliche, I mean, we do things like help if you're a catcher. We have a checklist of things you should be doing going into a showcase camp. And it's things like, running the field. It's blocking when you're warming up a pitcher between innings. There's a ball in the dirt, you smother it like it's game 7, because that might be the only chance you get to block a ball in front of these coaches. When you throw down between innings, you throw out like you're trying to throw out Dave Roberts, running for the red. I mean, that's what this looks like. So it's a lot of the little things. A lot of our kids are not the Power 5, show ponies. It's how do we help them separate with the little things. I was a guy that did all the little things well. I would have been a D4 player with my metrics coming out now, but I would have bit your ear off to get on the field and do all those little things. I try to teach that. Not everybody can do it, right? It's because people are created differently, but I think it's focusing on those little things. As us coaches, you preach and you preach and you preach. But the best thing, I'm sure you've had this too, and you got a kid that goes away to college and then they come back like, oh yeah, I know what you were saying now. Because I'll say, you're going to learn this in week 1 on the field. If you don't know how to run cuts as a catcher, you're going to get exposed. If you don't know how to do this, if you can run cuts as a shortstop, you know where to be. That's one step closer to getting on the field early as a freshman, because it's hard no matter where you're at to play early. So I guess, not to repeat myself, I would guess it's the little things, and I know that's a big answer. Yeah. There's a lot of minor things that all put together make up, a big opportunity.
Details.
Yeah.
Details for sure.
Yes.
And that probably, the grade piece doesn't change for softball versus baseball. Grades are great. You need grades.
Absolutely.
What do you see like in your high school players, softball to baseball, like going from high school to college and that transition? Is it much of a difference in how the details translate from softball high school to college versus baseball high school to college?
No, I think it's very similar.
Yeah.
The girls typically do better in school than us boys.
Smarter than us.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a smarter thing or maybe it's more attention to detail.
Yeah.
We use that be specific, hashtag be specific. That means a lot to us. It's specific details, specific on your grades, specific on your habits, specific on your dialogue. We've had kids who have gone in and struggled, and I've gotten calls from coaches like, she's ineligible. And my role does not stop once they commit. Then I'm coming in and bringing her onto our couch and say, you, with her parents, of course, but you got to do better. This is your family's reputation. It's my reputation. If I vouch for you and you've gone and you're ineligible, that's on you, right? And you got to grind it out and get better, and holding him or her accountable. That's all part of it. But now the little things, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in coming in. I mean, it's, if you're at a D3 school where they've got a 60-man roster, it's a hell of a battle to get on the field.
Right.
Whereas D1, you don't typically have that. But we always say you're in a specific sandbox with your peers. You're not a D1 guy typically at a D3 or vice versa. So you're up against your peers, and it's those little things that are going to help you get on the field early.
Yeah. No, I like what you said there about the sandbox too, because I think a lot of people assume when you go from high school to college, oh, I'm the guy or I'm the girl, and I just show up here and I'm going to get it done. Man, that's not how it works.
No.
Like you go somewhere, chances are you're probably going to go where you belong, or you should, and you're going to be up against it. To be able to get on the field, you're going to be up against it, whether that's D1 or D3 or JUCO or whatever it is, and you have to understand like those details. A lot of times that is what edges it out. There might be 4 really good middle infielders at a school. We got to pick 2.
Yeah.
2 can play at a time. And we might like all 4. We might love the skill set from all 4. We're certainly not going to give them up. Oh, well, you should probably go somewhere else because you can't. You 2 guys are not going to play here. No, we want all 4. We might be able to move 1 to left field. We might be able to move 1 to first base. But the details are what's going to set it apart and figure out, okay, who's going to get the job.
That's
and
right.
that might mean that somebody gets the job down the road or at another time. But right now, we got to figure out who's going to get the job right now.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying about the details, man. That stuff is awesome. On the flip side, what mistakes do you see girls and guys make during this process? What are some of the biggest mistakes
During the recruiting
during
process?
the recruiting process? They're trying to figure out this process. Like we talked about, really important things, the grades, the details, just showing how smart of a ball player you are. But what are some big mistakes that people make too that you just don't think about every day? You're like, man, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, probably the biggest or the hardest part for us is when you're onboarding a new player and family is helping them see through their own lens where they currently sit, not just where they belong, but where they sit now, where you might project to be. Because almost everybody, we're D1, and
Yeah.
D1 is a minuscule number of of athletes. So it's helping them see where they are currently, depending on whether they're a freshman or a senior. Maybe I call it the P word, projectability. I'm not an all knowing set of eyes, but I've seen this enough to kind of have an idea where you're gonna end up, and just helping them. I tell kids I'm not dream killer. So if you say you want to pitch at Tennessee, let's go.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not texting Coach Vitello and saying this is a guy you got to look at if you're throwing 82 because you're not there yet. But if you want to get on Tennessee's campus and go to a camp, go to the camp. I can't make that call to say this is a guy,
Right.
but so it's helping them see where they are now, where they're going to be. And I think the miss is people get so focused on D1 that now they're waiting to try to pivot late junior, senior year, and it's too late because there's only a certain number of slots for these kids. And I always use the analogy, if you're paratrooping in senior year saying, here I am, that ship's probably sailed.
Yeah.
A lot of the D1 schools are done with 25s. They're already onto their 26s.
Right.
The unique thing with Charlie coming in as late as he did was the game changer.
Yeah.
He had a lot of opportunities. Now, touching 90 and with the P word, projectable, got another 20 pounds of weight he can put on. Mm-hmm. All those things played in very nicely. But that was unique to move that quickly, that late on a kid and land at a D1 spot.
Yeah, it's great to see that worked out with Charlie, obviously. And I was sure to tell him, he thanked me the other day, Dave, thanks for everything you've done, allowed me to get in the facility and work. And I said, dude, you've done a lot of hard work too for yourself. But I tried to make him aware that it doesn't always work out that easy, man. Like this has been really good for you. And just understand that because you had a little bit of a painless process right now, there's going to be some hard work down the road that's going to need to happen. At some point, it's going to get hard. And like for me, I'm just making an educated guess. My educated guess would be that's something that people miss is that, oh, yeah, I'm getting recruited. I'm working with a recruiting guy. I've got these schools on me and thinking, okay, I'm a shoo-in. I'm good now. When I get there, I'll be good.
Yeah. Great point. Really, even before then, I'm on my way in. I was talking to a D2 coach in Florida, and he's got a camp upcoming. One of our guys is going to it. And we were just talking about some of his players. He's like, there's a kid who I brought in who was he was physical. He got here, and he's fluffy. He's out of shape. He's like, he wasn't working. And I kind of joked. I said, kids, in my experience, go one of two ways once you commit. You either go to a whole nother level of training, and I have to show I belong here, Or to your point, a lesser, hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, if you're that guy, I'm good, or that gal, you're probably going to get exposed real early.
Yeah.
And you're going to get, especially if they recruited player A and you show up as player B and not in a good way, you're going to go to the end of the line real quick, and you'll probably be in the portal that following summer because you're going to be pushed out. It's uber competitive no matter what level you're at. Like we talked about, you're up against your peers for the most part. And it's those who are checking all the boxes that are going to get on the field and get on the field early.
Speaking of checking boxes, just diving in a little bit to when I was playing. My recruiting process was zero.
Yeah.
I think I committed to a school, quote unquote, committed to a school like May 29th of my senior year after graduation was already done. And it was a D3 school in Ohio. I played 2 years. And it was great. It was a great experience for me. I'm not saying it was the best baseball school to go to. I'm not even saying it's necessarily where I belonged. But it was a great experience. But I didn't have this. I really didn't even have high school coaches that were taking it very serious. And I just remember being a super detailed kid on the field who was 5'7", 135 pounds soaking wet, knowing how to run the bases, knowing how to bunt, knowing how to position myself on the field, knowing how to position my other teammates, understanding when to run, understanding when to take a pitch, when to swing, understanding what to do on the field 100%. And it was very frustrating not having any support and a place to go. And like, I started all that brewed early on because I had some really good coaching at like 13 and 14. I had some really good coaching that for whatever reason stuck with me. For me, it was cool to work hard. It was never a thing. I didn't have to try. It was like, no, I want to work hard. And you see this with players, right? You see this where guys are like, well, it's kind of cool to act like I don't care. I don't give a shit. It's like, but then every once in a while you'll come across a kid now who you can tell, man, okay, that guy plays hard. I like that. Yeah, he plays hard. Obviously, we know that somebody knowing how to run the bases, knowing how to tackle the details, knowing how to talk, knowing how to communicate, like those extra things, it's obvious that they can help you. I guess my question is, and I was on with Coach Scally at Piedmont last week talking about this, but how much can they hurt you if you don't do them well? Like, can those be mistakes too? Guy doesn't run a hard 90. Guy hits a fly out to left center, or girl. Guy or girl hits a fly out to left center, and they just barely get around first base, and it takes them 7.2 seconds. Like, can those things hurt you?
Absolutely. And to that point, this company was built for you, for that player. That was me too, undersized and to step slow. And it's all the little things. How do you, as a player, how do you put that into an email? It's very hard. Yeah. Like a lot of our talk with coaches is telling them those things. We have a kid right now. He's a 2025. He just started with us. Who is that player? You just described him. And I am so excited to help that kid. And he has one of our coaches working him individually. But that was me. That was the coach who's helping him. That was him. And those are the kids as a coach you love. And if I can say instinctual, grinder, high IQ, that's probably describing you. That every coach loves that kid because most of us coaches, we're that player.
Yeah.
It's hard to get to where you get at a high level of coaching if you weren't a hard worker and instinctual. So that's the personalization side of what we do is helping those kids tell that story. To answer your question, can it hurt you? Absolutely it can.
Yeah.
I don't want to call these kids fringe kids, but 95% of our players, you're either mid-major D2 or maybe mid-major Power 5, or you're NAI D2, or you're sitting one way or the other. If left is D2 and right is D3 and you want to be a D2 guy, you have to do those little things,
right? Because
you're going to get exposed.
Right.
The game will find you out every time. And if you're too cool to run out of, as a recruiter, if I'm there watching you, I will absolutely say something to you after the game in front of your coach if I know him, or at least your parents. Say, we can't do that.
Yeah.
You're representing us. If I'm going to vouch for you and call for you, I never want to see that happen again. And I don't want to cross the line because I'm not their hitting coach. I'm not their pitching coach. I try to stay in my lane. But that kind of stuff, the IQ.
Try hard.
Yeah, absolutely. There's show up. We have a joke in our family. Just show up. Show up and work. People are like, you're everywhere. I am. I've started a company very quickly because I show up and I outgrind anybody.
Yeah.
That's how we have 100%.
We use the term hang around.
Yeah.
Show up and hang, like be around.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt you, Coach.
Be present.
But I like that. Show up and be present. Be around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I love this because I've coached several of your guys over the past couple years. And I've seen some of that stuff. And as a coach, I don't like to put up with it. I know in the back of my mind that coaches probably have to be college coaches have to be a little bit patient with it if they see a guy or a girl maybe not do something all the way. And they understand, like, okay, well, maybe it was a little bit of frustration. They're still immature. They're still maturing. I can see where they would have some understanding that maybe, okay, you give a kid a break, but there's only so much break you can give a kid. Like slamming the bat, freaking out, yelling the F word, the just blatant non-hustle.
Yeah.
It's different if you have a second baseman where there's a runner on second and there's 2 outs and infielders should be on their bellies with a CNI single, and maybe he forgets one time or it's just out of reach and he doesn't dive. Like, a coach is probably going to give that player a break. Whereas me as a coach, I'm probably like, get on your freaking bet. Like, that's not acceptable. Like, I think coaches understand to an extent, but like you're saying, you're creating a standard for your players too. Like,
And I hope I am, and we are. I mean, a lot of we do see kids remotely. There are kids I don't get out and see them as much as I would like to, so I can't really govern all of it. I'll use this as an example. I still help coach softball a little bit.
Yeah.
And we had a girl who I was doing her recruiting, but I was also her coach. Now, in softball showcases, coaches will say, I want to see number 7 bat again. Put her back up, which I wish baseball did more of that. But it's really cool. These are playing against other teams. And there's a D2 school, which this kid wanted to go to. Coach saw her, pops up. Hit again. Strikes out, I think. She had 2. Didn't drop head, giving information as so she's checking boxes on how to fail. I'm like, because we embrace failure. Good, you failed? Good. Coach, they're going to watch you. They want to see you fail. So somebody walks, and I said, let her pinch run. There's 1 out. I think her strikeout was the 1 out. So now she's running off first. She checks outfield depth, bloop single over second. She drops and goes. I'm coaching third. She comes in, backdoor, head first slide. I go, she's getting up. I go, you just got a scholarship. Because it's, what? That's your slide, your instincts, your IQ. You read your outfield depth. You did those little things, because I'm now going to highlight those to coach. And sure enough, the kid, she's like, yes, we want her. And was offered
That's awesome.
the following week for striking out and popping up.
Yeah.
But I'm bouncing around with that, which I tend to do.
No, I love that, man.
Base running is huge. You have a list. If you go into a showcase camp with us, you have a list of 20 to 30 things you should be doing base running, because that's where you can show IQ and hustle. That's where you can. So those little things, the instincts, which is hard to quantify in an email or a text message. If I say instinctual base runner, high IQ, those are really good. I don't put that on everybody. I only put that if I've seen it. But if I put that into a text, that's good. Now you better show it.
Right.
You better not be standing on second when a flare to falls to the right fielder's feet. You better do what we say you're going to do.
Yeah. That is gold. Just the instincts, the little stuff, base running. Like, I am frustrated. I need to do a better job. I'm having trouble getting travel ball age kids to treat base running seriously. It's like that's an extra.
Yeah.
No, it is the thing. Like, if you want to be an offensive, everybody's worried about hitting, exit velo, hitting. It's not hitting. It's defense and offense. Are you an offensive player? What kind of offensive player are you? If you don't hit home runs, you better run the bases, because how are you going to score? How are you going to score if you can't run the bases? And on the flip side of that, with pitchers, you better know how to control the running game. Me and Coach Scally talked about this in depth on his podcast at Piedmont, and I can vouch for this. Playing in that organization, we learned how to run the bases, and pitchers and defense learned how to control the running game.
Yeah.
And like, you're talking about 2 details that have nothing to do really other than speed nothing to do with metrics, all instincts, all paying attention, all just analyzing data over time and locking in, like just being totally locked into something that's a detail.
We have I'll leave the school nameless. We have a very prominent Power 5 school with new coaches over the last couple of years who came in, and they had, to quote, a list of just show pony PG 10 plus rating kids that couldn't play. They had to wipe out their whole roster to find kids, and they'll say, we don't care what their grade is. We can't. CHP, can he play? Is he a grinder? Is he a bite your ear off type? Those are the kind of guys we want that'll change the culture of our program. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think social media somewhat is to blame because it looks cool to have your oven mitt and your bat, all the stuff in the launch angle home run. You can leave all that from my old school eyes, because I'm older than you guys. Give me the bite your ear off head first, get covered in mud, blood, dirt. That's the guy I want as a coach. Again, that's to I don't I don't envy the new age coaches. You have to have a fine line between the new school and old school.
Yep.
Which is hard, and some guys do it outstanding.
Well, and to move it off of the coaches and onto the players, you can have a little bit of both. You can have the oven mitt and have the arm sleeve and have the tape and have the pants rolled up looking good. It's still cool to work hard. Absolutely. It's still cool to play hard and get dirty. So, and you see this at the highest level.
Yes.
Some of the game's most hated are the hardest working, most hard-nosed guys. I mean, you take Bryce Harper, for example. A lot of people have hated him over the years. There's no denying the dude. He plays hard and he cares.
Absolutely.
And I think players can take a lot from that, just understanding that you got to want to play hard and you got to want to care.
Yeah, and I was telling your counterpart, a guy that I work with, you guys are very similar, both D2, D3, middle infield guys that are young. There are coaches out here that are doing old school and the new school. Like I watch some of the stuff you do on social media.
Yeah.
There is that combination of new school, but you can still have the old school values that go a long way.
Yep.
I use this as an example. A kid will say, does a coach really care what if it's some new school behavior, whatever that is? Does a coach really care? The short answer is maybe no. Maybe they don't care. They're called players coaches. They're more forgiving, let you kind of do what you want. There are coaches out there that are like that at the highest level. But there is not a coach out there that does not appreciate the old school. There isn't. So if you are the guy covered in mud, blood, dirt, spit, fire coming out of your rear end, there's not a coach out there that's going to say, I don't want that kid.
Yeah.
But there are coaches that say, leave the prima donna in the parking lot. That there are those.
Yeah.
So
100%.
So box moment. I climb up on it every now and then. I try not to, but
no, it's good, man. It's good to hear. You hear coaches say it all the time, but you're seeing it from kind of the middle ground. You're trying to feed players. You're an advocate for both sides.
Absolutely.
And you have to be. So you have to spit the truth. People need to know what the truth is. Like what are some of those truths across the levels? And I've asked this question to a lot of different people. Softball, baseball, I want to hear all of it. Power 5 all the way down to the smallest of Division 3, everything in between, JUCO, NAIA. What are some of the differences? You talk through the old school, you talk through the metrics, you talk through what coaches are looking for, just all of those things. Like go through what your job, your team's job entails, navigating those different levels. Some of the big things that you see.
Yeah, great question. We work for both sides. We work for the families who hire us. We work for the coaches, because I tell our guys, our coaches, we won't say a number, we won't put our name on a number unless we've seen it with our own eyes, or if Perfect Game or PBR has, if Perfect Game said Charlie was throwing 94, well, we saw 89-90. What we can say is we've seen 89-90. He hit 94 in Fort Myers on April 17th, because that's not our number, right? So we have to stay true to both sides, and that's where we look at the analytics. That's a hard question, because really the analytics are what separates you. It puts everybody kind of on a left or right, like I said earlier, Power 5, mid-major. Power 5 mid-majors typically aren't looking at NAI D3. Now, they might be if it's a Georgia Gwinnett or somebody that where they can get drafted. It's different between the boys and the girls. Mm-hmm. Boys typically are we were probably the same, all of us. Whether you're a D1 or D3 guy, you still think you're going to be the guy that makes it. They're going to drag you off the field, kicking and screaming at some point in your career. It might be your freshman year of college. It might be after a 15-year in the show. Mm-hmm. We all think we're that guy. So it's really helping them find their place. Hard question to answer. Yeah.
No, and I like to, I think you answered it, Sean. Yeah. I think the answer is the metrics and the analytics do a lot of the work now. They're going to decide, hey, you're going to fall into, I liked what you said before about the fringe. Mm-hmm. You're going to fall into this fringe category, and if you take a right turn, you're going to wind up here, and if you take a left turn, you're going to wind up here. And I think that's like the second level. I think the first level, you also said, can he play or can she play?
Yeah.
And I think that answers the question of, okay, is college baseball or softball the right thing? That's answered by the, can this person play? And then the next level is, okay, where are the analytics? Because that's going to figure out where we start. And then from there, you saw, Keenan Nelms, one of your guys, one of our guys here as well, roller coaster story for him, and it wound up taking a right turn in a good direction for him. And the hard work is not over, obviously, but you see those things happen. So, I guess the biggest thing right here is just understanding the level of priority, right, for your players and saying, okay, first question is, do you want to play in college? Answer me that. Second question is, let's figure out what all your analytics and metrics are, and then we're going to at least find a starting point, right?
Yeah, great assessment. And do you want to play in college? First question. And then between metrics and there, I try to find out, do you truly want to play in college? Right. Do you know what that entails?
Yeah.
Now, coaching softball is a little bit different, but not so much. In the 20 and 21 classes, the coach and I, we placed 25-plus kids, most D1, D2. And almost to a person, I said, she's going to make it, not going to make it, not going to make it, going to make it. And it wasn't about talent. I could just see those little things on the field. Yeah, not wanting to slide, not wanting to work out, not wanting to, like with my daughter, not the most talented kid, but I knew she was going to make it.
Yeah.
And she was raised by wolves. I mean, she was typical coach's kid, but she had all the intangibles to say this kid's going to make it because she loved the game. She loved the process, and there's no such thing as a optional workout. She's there. I mean, those are the things that she knew she needed to do. So I think that's important, and we probably should have touched on that earlier, is not just say, I want to play, I'm taking my talents to fill in school blank. It's, do you know what that means? Do you know what that looks like? And I use this example. It's Friday night, it's 10 o'clock. The party's just getting going, but you got practice at 6 a.m. Are you going to go home? Or are you going to stay out till 2?
Right.
Because if you stay out till 2, you're going to get exposed at 6 a.m. It's going to happen. And we've probably all been there. But at some point, you have to make that decision. Is this for me? And it's not for everybody. And that's okay, too. Sometimes it's helping them see that before they even get to college. We've had kids that say, you know what, I don't think this is for me. Awesome. Wish you the best. I hope you – there's a kid at Tennessee right now. He had offers to go play D2. He's like, I want to go to school. Mm-hmm. Like, awesome. I'll call Tony and see if we can get you an equipment manager job or something. He's like, I'm good. I'm like, have fun. Right?
Cool.
So
yeah, nothing wrong with it.
Part of it. Yeah.
It is, man. It is a part of it. Did you watch – I asked this on a lot of the podcasts, but did you watch Swamp Kings?
Part of it, yeah. Yeah. That was
so you were talking and you made up a point just about staying out till 2 in the 6 a.m.s, and I thought it was very interesting how that one year Urban Meyer had his guys train on the weekends at like midnight, from like midnight to 2. So there was no temptation. It was like, hey, party. This is what we do. This is your party. Yeah. Get in here and have a weight room party.
Yeah.
And granted, that's probably not doable for every organization. But just creating an environment for players to, like, okay, you did the hard work to get here. Now let's not let guys slack off. I think the best organizations, the best colleges, the best programs do that for their players, and that makes your guys' job easier. just touching on your team a little bit, have you made some good new connections in this process? You've got a team of guys working for, I'm not sure how many guys you have
Yeah.
working for you now. Like, how has that made this process easier just with the connections and then your team helping you?
I touched on it earlier, but the 2 degrees of separation,
Yeah.
kind of the Kevin Bacon in baseball. Doug Minkiewicz and I grew up together in Miami, and he was high school teammates with A-Rod.
Yeah.
He called me about a year or so ago, and just asking questions about his own son, and it was eye-opening to me that a guy who played at the highest level for 13 years was naive to the process.
Yeah.
And he's all about CHP. The metrics don't mean a whole lot. He can play, which I said yes to your eyes, who you coached for 7 years in the minors and you played at the highest level. There aren't as many who can do that from a parental perspective, or if they can, they think their little Johnny's the next Hall of Famer. So Doug's been good for us to have him just give me a whole nother set of eyes to bounce stuff off, and he gets me back in my place with, as I'm preaching too much, maybe travel ball type guy, where he's like, this is the pro eyes, the pro perspective, which not a lot of our guys are there yet, but we have guys that are starting to go that direction.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. But we have D3 baseball players, we have former minor league pitchers, we have 6 guys on baseball and now 3 on softball, including me on both sides. So we've got a team of about 10, give or take. We're not that big where I don't know every one of my kids in our portal. I can say John Doe, 5'10", 185, 3.8 GPA, 1080 SAT, 88. I know their metrics, so if a coach calls me, I'm not overwhelmed where we have too many kids. We've controlled growth to be that. I don't want to be in CSA where I've got 100,000 names in a database that you don't keep 100% by doing that.
Yeah.
So it's been fun seeing different sets of eyes. Former travel ball coaches on softball are helping us. Former hitting instructors on softball, guys who, like yourself, are doing lessons and are intimately involved with kids. They have kids they're managing. So we've got really all different facets of players helping us, or coaches helping us.
No, that's great, man. It sounds like, you've built a good team in relatively a short amount of time. I hear nothing but good things about what you guys are doing, and I've had direct contact with you on several of our guys and more to come, I'm sure. Give a little message to all of the ball players out there, softball and baseball, just on some of the things that they really should be doing, some of those boxes they should be checking on their own first, like before they even contact a guy like yourself or an agency like yourself. Like, hey, you need to do these things first. Like, what's your message to those ball players?
Yeah, it really depends on where they are in their year. 2024 is a senior right now. If a 2024 calls us, I call it triage. I handle all of our 2024s, whether it's baseball or softball, because they typically are late. If you're a 27, a freshman just getting going, get good video. Clean up your social media because coaches will look at it. Keep your grades in order. Start to email. And don't just blindly email with a photocopied email to 100 schools. Focus on 10 to 15.
Yeah.
We look at 4 things with our kids. It's first and foremost, it's education. Do you know what you might want to do when you grow up? What do your grades look like? What do you want to be? With a Charlie, he wants to be a high academic, Georgetown, Wofford, those type of schools. Let's not look at a low end academic school where it's not the right fit.
Yeah.
Secondarily, logistics. Do you want to be in the Southeast? Do you have to stay in Georgia? Do you have to stay in Florida because of hope or bright futures? Do you want to be out in the mountains with grandma on the West Coast? Kind of figure out where you want to be. Third, what can mom and dad afford? Because that's huge, obviously. And then fourth, let baseball and softball be the conduit to delivering that for you. So I think that would be the focus on any athlete, whether you're a 24 or 27, is if you can focus on those 4 things, you'll have a fighting chance. Now, really depending on where you fall in that continuum, it's how aggressive do you have to be. There are a lot of services out there that can help you. It's really just finding the right fit.
Right. Love that, man. Well, give the viewers just, where they can find you on socials, little closing closing statement on kind of just what you guys are all about, where they can find you, information, all that stuff.
Yeah, we're www.easrecruiting.com. That's our webpage. We're at EAS Recruiting, all one word, at Twitter or X. Instagram is EAS_recruiting_, I think, is Insta. But we're out there. We're seen. If you're at a tournament, you've probably seen the hat. We're there. The full exposure of EAS is what we do. We want to get out there and just outwork everybody. We want to work along with you. If you join us, it is a partnership, as we saw with Charlie and with your other kids. It is truly your kid, and when either myself or one of our guys working together with you to tell your story. 100%, I know it's going to not continue to happen. Like you've been saying that for 2 years. We're still there. It's a number that's not achievable to maintain, but damn, we're going to keep trying. And it does not have to do with your talent level. If you want to play, if you're willing to work and go through the process, we can help you. And it's proven. We have kids that have not even played on their high school team that are now playing in college. So that's our story. We love what we do. We got a passionate group of people that are all about the kids and just keep doing things the right way. I think it pays it forward.
Great. I appreciate it, Sean. If you guys like the stuff that Coach Sean had to say today, if it helped out in the recruiting realm, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. If you guys have questions on how to get hooked up with Coach, you can shoot us an email, info@athleticbaseball.com. We'll have some more stuff coming out, just collaborating with Sean and us. And, you guys keep working hard at your game. Keep doing keep checking the boxes. Keep working on what you need to work on. Just give yourself a chance at that next level if this is really what you want to do. So from the Juice Box, Athletic Podcast, Baseball Development Show. Catch you guys soon, Sean. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach. Yes, sir.